Hey everybody, this is my '04 Silverado 1500 with about 94,000 miles on it. The engine is idling right now, and you can see that a bunch of my gauges are broken and not reading properly. The tach says I'm over 6,000 RPM, my oil pressure, temperature, and voltage gauges are obviously crazy, and although it looks like my speedometer is reading correctly, it almost always has a bias error on it when it works at all. So I wasn't going to bother fixing any of these issues until my fuel gauge gave out, but unfortunately it has just now started to give false readings as well, so I can't trust it. So what I'm going to do is pull the instrument panel out, take it apart, and change out the stepper motors that drive the needles. Once I get it all back together, I'm going to have to zero all the needles, but that shouldn't be a problem because what I've got here is a Bluetooth OBD2 module that's linked to my phone that displays information directly from the vehicle's computer. So I know what my temperature and voltage and whatnot should be set to. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get this taken out and start to disassemble it and pick back up with you there. Okay, so I've got the instrument panel out and both the front and back covers off. They're held on with little clips that are sort of delicate, so be careful with that. And you can see I've already got one of the needles taken off as well. You just have to pull it straight off and out. They're a little bit delicate as well, so I would recommend getting underneath it with a flat blade screwdriver like this or something. And up here I've got these 6 replacement stepper motors that I got from rockauto.com. They're made by Dorman in China, and they're apparently a better design than the original, which I would hope. They also came with these 10 little replacement backlight bulbs that you can upgrade if you need to, but I haven't had any trouble with that, thankfully. But anyway, if I find any problems, I'll swap them out. So what I'm going to do here is pull the rest of the needles off, and then the faceplate, and then hopefully get to the little electronics panel underneath, and pick up there. Alrighty, so here is the bare circuit board, which you finally get to after removing the cover plate and the transparent light spreader that sits behind it. I noticed that 2 of the backlights are disconnected, but I think that just happened during disassembly because of how I had to pry a little bit to get this thing apart. But what I think I'll do is desolder them the rest of the way and swap them out with the new ones as long as I'm this far into it. And then I'll move on to the steppers and get those changed out. So this step is not as complicated as you would expect given the amount of work it took to get to this point, but if I flip this guy over and we first take a look at the replacements, you can see that each has 4 little contacts sticking out which will need to be soldered in place. And here are the existing joints that will need to be desoldered first so the old steppers can be removed. From there it's just a matter of soldering the new ones in their place and working backwards to get everything reassembled. So now I've got all the steppers changed out, as well as the 2 backlight bulbs that I managed to break. The process went as smoothly as could be expected, but something I failed to notice earlier was that I also managed to damage the momentary trip reset switch. Thankfully, I found all the little pieces and hot glued the housing back together. So now I'm just going to reassemble everything, get it plugged back into the truck, and test it out. So this is the first startup after getting everything back together, and it looks like everything is at least initializing okay, and all of the backlights appear to work. They look like funny rings right now because I don't have the final cover panel on, reason being that I can't adjust the zero position of the needles if the clear plastic cover is in the way. So to zero the needles, I'm going to have to compare what they tell me is happening with what the computer says is actually happening, and while the truck is off, just manually move the needles a little bit until I can get those 2 things to match. So the first thing the computer is telling me is that my revs are a little over 800, so I'll need to adjust the tach down a little bit. Likewise, I'll need to adjust the pressure, temperature, and voltage gauges. Now, the fuel gauge is a little less scientific, but I know that my tank is full, so I'll just put that right on F. And lastly, I'll do the speedometer with the GPS because that will be the most accurate. So once everything checks out, I'll put all the panels back together and be good to go. So I hope this overview was helpful to you, and if you have any questions about anything I didn't cover, feel free to ask in the comments. Thank you for watching.